to know your opinion about why the improvisation is considered artistically within inferior theater makeup, you know, like improvisation
Mm-hmm.
is not so high theater.
You mean it's not respected?
It's not
By
respected
theater.
by the
Oh.
theater. Why, in your opinion, it happens?
Well, I guess it's still, in some cases, it still is, but I guess because I don't know why they didn't respect theater, you're talking about like the standard theater.
Yeah, I feel
opinions.
that improvisation is a small group inside, and they are not. It's like an inferior work. They are not respect. For example, we don't. It's difficult to get some public funds or some company that put funds in, you know, an improv project. You know.
Well, I think it's probably because it's not thought of as, why? That's a good question. Why is it not respected in a sort of classic theater? Let me see if I can come up with a clean answer for you.
Okay, you can think. We can come back to this question.
No. It's okay. Because they think that we don't work hard enough or something, or it's not. We're not serious enough.
Do you think that?
They think. And when I say we, hang on, somebody's.
I feel. Let me just introduce another thought inside this question.
Sure.
I feel that seems like we are a small group, and some of improvisers want to be a small group, like special. Not many of them say, "I'm not an actor. I'm an improviser."
Yeah.
Oh, it's not yet. It's improvisation, like this.
Yeah.
And puts improvisation as a outsider, very outsider, that it is a kind of glamourings in it, but also put the improvisation as something more easier to do, or more no work, so you do something and improve like this.
I think that it's because we're not, improvisation's not taken seriously by the conventional theater, possibly because they think I say we, because I'm from the theater as well, I direct plays and all that, but I'm an improviser. There's nothing written out about it or not as much written about it as there is about the theater, so it's hard to reference the work. And I think part of the problem now is that it's considered light comedy or light entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was popular, I mean, it's very popular, so it's impossible to ignore it. The theater doesn't ignore it anymore, and in my experience, there's a lot of improvisation going on in the theater, in the standard classical, so-called classical theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happened is improvisation's actually changed the theater, and it's changed cinema, and it's changed television, and it's changed how people work now.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who work in Hollywood in the producing end of things, and they're quite successful, and I'm thinking of two of them at this moment, who have both said the same thing. They work for big companies, and they're very successful, and they've won Emmys and Academy Awards and things like that, and they both said to me that improvisation is almost a requirement for actors now on their CVs in America, and I extend that out to the rest of the production world as well. But I think that originally it wasn't, or originally 50 years ago or 60 years ago, it was considered as a kind of classroom tool to teach actors introduction to ideas and things like that. But I think primarily it wasn't. There was nothing to compare it to, except classic theater, which was to have a text, and then you analyze the text, and then you expand the text, and you put it on stage, and then you make a presentation based on rational thinking in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the improv was considered less in those days because there was no experience with it. Improvisation is something that kind of disappeared from the theater. It used to be part of the theater many, many years ago. If you go back 400 or 500 years, we know that they improvised a lot of things. There's theories about Shakespeare's plays that he would sketch out these. Things. We don't have Shakespeare's writing. We have what came after he died, and by people remembering it when they first published the plays. So to say that they worked in a way that contemporary or modern theater works is a guess. But if you look at the people who went to the theater in those days, they were a non-literate audience. And it's thought that he would have had ideas, and they would have practiced the plays and things like that, and they would have practiced the ideas. But the actors themselves were good at improvising the verse. That he would maybe write out a bunch of things, they would remember them, the ones who could read. The others were told what to say, the ones who couldn't read. So we have to say that some nights, if they were on a roll, they probably improvised a few more verses. If it was a good night, Hamlet would have gone on a bit longer than he did the night before, which would sort of explain why a lot of the plays seem incredibly overwritten. And when you go to do the very old plays, you usually have to cut them quite a bit in order to make them work. Otherwise, they're repeating the same ideas. It's a concept. But I think in contemporary theater now, we know that improvisation is a key element in performance. Now, when you're talking about the attitude here in Brazil, it might be that it's popular. Improvisation is popular, right?
And it's cheap.
And it's cheap. And the people who work in the big theaters that get funded by the state, you mentioned the state funding theaters and things like that. It's hard to make an argument to them who are making funds available to you that improvisation is a legitimate theatrical form or an artistic form. It's hard to prove it. You can't prove it. Because listen, if it's a good night in improv, the audience doesn't think you're improvising. They think you've worked it all out and you're very smart people. If it's a bad night, they'll call it improvisation and say, you see, improvisation doesn't produce anything of value. Having said that, there's also the problem, in my view, of around the world, improvisation
is the concept, maybe.
Sorry?
The concept of the world, for example.
Yeah, the view of the world towards improvisation is that it's all light comedy, light entertainment, light. And they're right. A lot of it is. But that's because of the popularity of it and the fact that a lot of groups happened to come along very quickly. It went from not existing in the theater to being super popular within a few years. Some countries threw millions of dollars, Australia for example, once theater sports got to Australia, they had big television productions. Huge theaters were used to broadcast theater sports. Famous actors wanted to be in it because it had such it had an appeal to them. I think most actors like improvisation. A lot of them won't say that. They won't, and a lot of them say the opposite. They say, I hate improvisation because I want to know what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that. I don't have a problem with that.
But do you feel there is a different, like, this feeling of, oh, I'm not actor, I'm improviser, or no, I'm an actor, I'm not improviser. You feel that this kind of...
yeah, there's a split there. Yeah, many people, I mean, even back in the early days of Loose Moose, we had people who wanted to be actors. They were studying acting, they're interested in acting. They wanted to make theater, plays. That was me, and many people were like that. And then the thing about improvisation is it attracted a lot of people who were not actors and had no intention of ever being an actor, but they could improvise. And so they said, I'm not an actor, I'm an improviser. They didn't want to learn plays, they didn't want to memorize lines and show up for rehearsals, because it's so easy. Improvisation's easy. You show up, walk on stage, and start doing things. You don't have to have rehearsals, you don't have, you know, and I guess that's what was attractive about it for many people who wanted to perform but didn't want to show up and do rehearsals.
Okay. Thank you.